this one's going to be really interesting because it's going to force you to think about some things that maybe you don't want to think about. What does freedom mean to you? I'm going to give you what I went through, and maybe you will find some benefit there. I grew up really, really poor, and I felt constrained by poverty, lack, and looking against the glass of the world with my nose pressed tightly against it at what other people had. One of the things of having the mother that I had, who was inquisitive, who was smart, and a voracious reader, that's a trait that all of the kids adopted, was massive exposure without a methodology to obtain the things that you can see, look at, sometimes pick up and touch. But you just couldn't get them because that was her limitation. She was really good at exposure, but she didn't know how to get to those things. I remember talking to her about some things I wanted as a kid, and during the conversation, because I went to visit her yesterday for Mother's Day, she brought up the list of the things I wanted, and it is spooky, and this goes back to things that are in earlier videos of the Hustler Mindset Project. I have written down that I wanted to be able to buy stuff wholesale as a kid years and years ago. And it was just like, really? I wrote that down. I completely forgot about it. And everything that I had written down had come to pass, even as a kid. So just to reinforce something that was said earlier, write your goals down. It is not enough to have them in your mind or to have them kind of loosely. Write them down. Looking back, I wish I had written down more goals, like, I want to own the world or something like that. But just going through that exercise and looking at stuff and really realizing, I thought I was moving forward in life to get money, to get things, when really I wanted freedom from poverty. Not necessarily to be a billionaire or a millionaire. I wanted freedom from poverty because it is a damning thing to see all of these things that are in the world and to feel dysfunctional, to feel that something's seriously wrong with you because you don't have them. As I grew older, I realized I was defining myself by things and what I had and what I didn't have. But the thirst to still have those things was still there. And I was like, okay, how can I get them? And I started coming up with ways to get everything that I wanted at a discount. Who knew that would be the way that the world would go? Now, what does freedom mean to you? What does freedom mean? I mean, what is freedom for you? Because we all live in our own skulls. We all have these ideals of who we are, what we want, what we should be. Narratives are awesome if they're liberating, and they are the devil if they keep you in a mental prison. So with this Mental Monday, and this is the first one with an exercise, I want you to really ponder, what does freedom mean to you? My exercise in freedom is building businesses that provide me options to do what I want to do with my time. When I was in the military, I was a good troop. Didn't really get into too much trouble. Did get an Article 13, 15, whatever they call it, because I didn't do something correctly and I was on extra duty for like 2 months or something like that. It was always bumping up because it wasn't the power, it wasn't the money, it was the lack of choice that drove me nuts. I just wanted to have choice in what I was doing. It was just a part of my personality. I was telling someone that when I got out of the military, I actually sold all of my uniforms and boots. Some people will put their boots up on a power line just to get them up there. I've seen people throw them 3, 4, 5, 6 times just to get them just right. I didn't care. It was, I'm out of here. I did my duty. It was wonderful. And it's time to move on. And that's what I did. I moved on. But that whole notion of freedom is a personal development. What's freedom for me may be a prison for someone else, because my lifestyle is very stable. It's not really chaotic. And I'm very busy because I want to be busy. I push myself to do things because the opportunities that were before me are staggering. And coming from that little kid who had his nose pressed against the glass of life, I know what it is to not have shit. I know what it is to be hungry. I know what it is to be homeless. I know what it is to be so damn lonely you sit up on the stoop and talk to a crackhead for 2 hours because there's no one else around. That was my life of lack. I didn't really know that I could have made better. I did know I could make better decisions, but I didn't have the methodology or the process I have now. And I take from all those experiences as a grooming process for my life, because when I look at people today, they're doing these things, but they don't really know why they're doing these things, because many narratives, which used to be very good, are now harmful. Go to school, get a degree. Get married, raise kids. Now understand, getting married and raising kids is not harmful. Getting married to the wrong person because they're pregnant can mess up your life for a long, long time. I'm not going to say forever, ever, ever, as they outcasts would say, but it can be damning for a long time. Many of the things that are going on in the world have actually created liberation for people, because the old school of the nuclear family, getting married, husband, wife, and kids, it works well for a lot of people. But it only works well when you have that man or that woman and they both have the exact same value system. If they don't have the exact same value system, it's not even a matter of them being good or bad people. It's just not going to work. Because at some point, those values are going to run around the room and go, pay attention to me because I'm here. And we live in a society where there isn't mainstream value systems anymore. There's micro value systems. This person has this set of values. This person has that set of values. And it makes it really challenging for people to come together. Because, sure, you can accept the preposition that someone has a different set of values. It's very easy to accept if they're just a mere friend or a distant family member. But when that's the person that's sleeping in the same bed with you every night, you can't just accept it if it doesn't work for you. You can try, but usually it won't work out. Those value systems are incredibly important to the long-term vibrancy and health of any relationship. I have tiers of friends. I have one friend who was just so funny. She says either you're in the bucket or you're not in the bucket. It's like you got mad love here, or you don't have mad love. And I'm not like that. I've got the inner circle, then I have the outer ring, and then I have the plateau. The plateau is, we're just associates. I know you, you know my name. That's about it. If you're in the plateau and you call me up and say, hey, Glendon, I need to move, I'm just going to go, I'm going to chuckle. That's what they make movers for. You have to be in that inner circle for me to get in my vehicle to go to your place and help you move heavy stuff. Because we got to be tight, because I hate moving. I hate it. Then another thing in terms of freedom, have you really thought about being yourself? I said this about maybe 4 years ago on my Facebook wall. One of the hardest things in life to do is to have the courage to be yourself, because being a special ed kid taught me a lot. I wasn't allowed to use slang. I use it, copiously now. I wasn't allowed to use slang when I was going through speech pathology because it was more challenging to speak correctly than to try to speak correctly and use slang and know the context. And it was too much for my little mind at the time. And it's like, this is how you should speak, Patrick, and this is how you should do this, and this is how you should do that. And I was like, okay. It was a lot to absorb. It was a ton of stuff. Oh, there's something else too. Now, it doesn't matter now because more and more people are giving me that look in public, and it doesn't. I just have to just come out with it. Like, my first name's Patrick, and there's this thing that's like, well, he's not putting out his name for a good reason, and it's true. Being a business owner, and when you're dating, when you meet women and they know that you are doing well, they respond differently to you. I've always been somewhat understated with that. Like, when I was in the storage auction business, I wouldn't tell people I did. It's like, oh, I work in the warehouse, just to see them respond, because I wanted people to like me, not to like me for what I could do. Because I've had situations where they knew I owned a business and they kissed my ass and it was nice, but they didn't give a shit about me. So early in life, I went by Patrick, and when I went with Scheme Incorporated, and it really started with writing, because it was like, because I Googled it, or no, I actually Yahoo, when they used to go Yahoo, and Yahooed it, and Patrick Cameron was this hairdresser. I was like, I don't even want to be confused with the cat. So I chose my middle name, Glendon, which I hated for most of my life. And then I was like, well, that sounds like a nice writer name, Glendon Cameron. So I went with that, and that's how I introduced myself to the writing community. And it just seemed to work really well on the resume, and it did. I always got in, I always got the interviews. And I use it, well, I was using it for dating purposes because everyone Googles everyone. So I would meet someone and they would Google me and they couldn't find shit. They were like, what? And then this recent thing where I got arrested for, this is crazy. I got arrested because the storefront that we moved out of in Stone Mountain, the fucked up code enforcement officer, the storefront was empty. He left a ticket on the door, which I'd never gotten to respond to. And since I didn't show up to court, I got a failure to appear warrant. Yeah, that's how I got a mugshot. Most of my life, living a life of honesty and decency, and I get arrested for some shit like that. I will be real with you. I thought about going to that guy's house and waiting until he came out and going upside his head, because he did it intentionally. He couldn't even look at me in court. The whole thing was dismissed. So since that came out, I no longer have the cover because they linked up my name. So if you put in Glendon, and the people who do the mugshot thing, it's weird. It's like if you've got something going on, they find you and then they keyword. And I actually learned something from that, because it's how you keyword pictures. It makes them pop up. That's how when you Google something, you see this picture that is not even closely related. It's the keywords. And it's called keyword spamming. But essentially, that was the deal. That was the deal. That's why I went with Glendon. But my mom refuses to call me that. And all my old friends were like, I don't give a damn who the fuck you are. You're Patrick. So, and how this relates to freedom is I was able to create two identities for myself. Because the thing is with writing, I'll just say, when I'm writing under my pen name, I actually feel like a different person. I know that may seem pathological to you right now, but it's fun as shit because it's an escape. So that's the whole deal with the name thing. There's so many stories out there, and I will probably never go on YouTube and even talk about it because it's too funny. But it taught me, going back to the special ed deal, it taught me how to deal with a lot of pressure from many different sources. My mother was on me, my speech pathologist was on me, my teachers were on me, and I was a little kid. And then there was the pressures of being a kid, and other kids, and elementary kids are mean because they don't really have any compasses on morality at that point. Oh, a few did. Some were naturally sweet. But I went through all of that stuff while learning to speak. And it created my rich imagination. That was my escape. So I learned that with hardship and going through things, it produces something in you. Because I don't really believe that things make you stronger. I just think they uncover what's really going on under there. They just uncover what's already there. Like my partner, and with her fight with cancer. I mean, she was a really strong person, and she went through it. And I will tell you a story that was so funny. When she was in hospice, and this was about 9 days before she died, went to visit her, and there was this really cute nurse, and we're just sitting there talking, and she knows she's dying, and we're just sitting there, and she's like, hey, I put in a good word for you, because she's kind of cute, and I was just like, huh? I wasn't even really thinking like that, because I'm sitting there like dealing with the gravity of the situation that you are going to be here real soon. I was that just shows you what kind of person she was. Even at that moment, she was still looking out for other people. So with that, the whole level of freedom and this whole concept of defining yourself, of actually making choices that are going to be difficult, because if you are a straight-laced person, and then you go to your family and say, look, I'm going to go to the mountains and grow mushrooms, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Creating freedom for yourself. When I left the storage auction business, I probably could have jumped back into it. Probably started writing July 17th. I was pretty much back up to speed by December. I probably could have got back into it around January, February. Probably could have. But I made a choice. And I think I mentioned it in the video before, and I'll tell it to you again. I actually had this conversation with God, and it's like, all right, this is the deal, God. And this is how we just get down. If I can make 50 grand a year, I'll do this writing thing. That was the threshold. The bar was set very, very low. I wasn't like, I got to make 100,000. I got to make two. No, because the thing is, with my financial abilities, my financial education, I can do a lot with 50 G's, because at that time, I didn't have any debt. Everything I had, I owned, and I had money in the bank. So, 50 large does a lot when you don't have it going out in all these different directions. So I made that deal, and it was based on freedom, because I really wanted to pursue that. That was a freedom choice. And understand, freedom has a cost. It has a cost. And that is what trips people up, because people feel that freedom should be free. And really, there's nothing in life that's free. There's opportunity cost for everything you do. When you breathe in oxygen, you produce other things. There's byproducts that are produced. There's systems that are produced. You produce waste. There is no free ride anywhere. There's always a cost of energy, or cash, or resources, or emotion. There's always a cost. So understand, if you really want to be free, the first thing that you must do is define what is freedom to you. That's the first step, because people it goes back to that story, Acres of Diamonds. I mean, the whole premise is this guy went out looking for something he already had, but because he didn't take the time to educate himself on what it meant to look for diamonds, what a diamond looked like in the raw, he walked straight past them. Some of you may have to just make a few changes in your life to be free, if you just dig deep and then examine that. So that's your goal. That's your task. This is your mission if you choose to accept it. Take a sheet of paper, and at the top of the sheet of paper, write, what is freedom to me? Take an hour and just freeze write. Just whatever comes to mind, write it down. Do not censor. Don't edit. Just write. I don't care if it sounds crazy. Just write. Just keep writing. Because when I do that, there's some stuff that I'm just like, wow, good thing this is going in the shredder. But in the middle, sometimes at the top, there's good stuff, because you're training your mind to produce. So take that sheet of paper at the top, what is freedom to me, and describe to you what's your ideal of freedom. Because like I said, mine is real simple. My ideal of freedom is the ability to have options and to be able to choose. Because for over half my life, well, more than half my life, I couldn't do it. I worked a job I didn't want to work. I was married to someone that I later on realized I shouldn't have been married to. And I had encapsulated myself in many different areas that I felt constricted, confined, and imprisoned because I didn't have options. And when I say options, this isn't about being flaky, going from one thing to another. It's about having the ability to choose what you want in your life. That's it. Having that option, creating an environment and creating a personal ecosystem where you can choose the life that you want versus having one thrust upon you or shoved down your throat. So that's your Mental Monday, something for you to ponder and chew on. All right, this is Glendon, and I will see you on the good side.